Hello, I have been bedbound for the last several hours because I have this excruciating lymph node swelling. You can kind of see it right there. I have no idea where this came from, but it is so painful, and I've never had this before. I recently had a little health scare, and I shared a bit about it on my Instagram, but since I've gotten a surprising number of questions about it, so I thought I would do a full debrief of what happened and why I was in the hospital. My name is Dr. Sam Ellis, and I'm a board-certified dermatologist. I'm here to help you understand your skin and find skincare products that work for you, and sometimes just give you a life update on what it's like to be a dermatologist in and outside of the office. So a couple weeks ago, I was getting ready to go to bar trivia on Tuesday nights, as one does, and I felt like a little bit of tenderness under my jawline, and I was thinking like, that feels kind of weird, but like, I don't know, maybe I have like a sore throat or something. With all of the hand washing and social distancing, I have not been sick in like 2 years, and I think my body was just like, what's happening? I kind of ignored it, went to bar trivia that night. In the middle of the night, a couple times I woke up and was just thinking like, oh my gosh, like this is tender. Like, what is happening here? But I went back to sleep, woke up Wednesday morning, was still noticing the tenderness, but again, I was like, I don't need to make a big deal out of this. But as Wednesday went on, the tenderness became really intense, and then I started to see swelling, not on my jaw, but underneath the corner of my jaw, and I was thinking, this is not going well. I think one of the hardest things as a physician is knowing when to get medical help, because my husband's like, oh, just call the nurse hotline and they'll walk you through it. And I'm like, babe, I know exactly what they're going to tell me if I call and say I have less than 24 hours of swelling in my neck. Like, they're gonna think it's a swollen lymph node. They're gonna say monitor it. Like, I don't have a fever. I don't have chills. I feel fine. Like, they're not going to tell me anything I don't know. And I think a lot of physicians have that same mentality, even when you're working outside of your specialty, to think like, no one's gonna tell me something that I don't know. And so I kind of waited it out, but then midday, because it was getting so tender, I decided to go to urgent care, mostly to get a COVID test, because I had gone to Portland the weekend before, and although I didn't have any COVID symptoms, I realized that this is a unique disease and can manifest in unusual ways. And so I just wanted to be careful, because I see so many patients on a daily basis. I want to make sure I'm not putting my patients at unnecessary risk. So I went to urgent care and told them kind of what was going on. And they looked in my ears to make sure I didn't have an ear infection, because at that point I had started to get pain radiating into my middle ear and kind of like up near my eye. So I was a little bit confused, because I was like, just regular inflamed lymph nodes or lymphadenitis shouldn't have such radiating pain. So they looked in my ears, they looked in my throat, they didn't see anything. I got my rapid COVID test, it was negative. And of course, exactly like I knew they would, they told me, oh, it's probably a swollen lymph node. Continue to monitor it since you don't really feel sick otherwise. So that was probably around 1 or 2 p.m. Let's just say the rest of the day did not go well. Like, I got home, an hour later, I started having like, I don't know, it's been so long since I had a fever, and I wasn't really checking my temperature at that point, but I just was feeling like hot and a little bit cold and just very lethargic. What I noticed is like the swelling on the side of my face was getting bigger and bigger. And that's when I kind of hopped on Instagram and like was kind of commenting on it, because it was just so rapidly progressive. Hello, I have been bedbound for the last several hours because I have this excruciating lymph node swelling. You can kind of see it right there. I have no idea where this came from, but it is so painful, and I've never had this before. I went and got a rapid COVID test. It was negative. I had them look in like my ears and my throat to make sure there wasn't any like sore throat or like ear infection that could be causing this. But this is excruciating. And that is really the only thing that concerned me, is like, this is not heading in the correct direction, and the pain was getting worse. And really I was thinking, okay, I have clinic tomorrow and Friday, and although the pain is manageable now, if this gets significantly worse, I will not be able to see patients, because it started to be uncomfortable to open my mouth really wide. I was just not feeling well. And so when you're a doctor and you have a whole panel of patients to see the next day, you kind of have to know ahead of time if you're going to need to call out sick, because they have to call. I probably had 30 plus patients on my schedule that they needed to reschedule. This is not something I feel like doctors talk about a lot, but the most stressful thing is thinking that I have 2 super full schedules full of patients tomorrow and the day after. And all I can think is like, this better get better so that I don't leave my patients hanging and I don't have to have my office staff calling 70 people to reschedule them and getting them rescheduled. So like, I don't know, it just adds this other layer on having an issue when you're worried about all the other people you affect. And so I was trying to like fight it out and figure it out. And I went on Instagram, I talked about it. And actually one of my patients direct messaged me and was like, hey, I'm your patient. I knew exactly who she was. And she's like, my husband is a oromaxillofacial surgeon. He thinks you might have inflammation of your parotid gland. So the parotid gland is a salivary gland that sits kind of at this part of your face. And she's like, you can give him a call and talk to him, which was so nice. She sent me his cell phone and I got on the phone with him and kind of talked through what I was going through. And we kind of decided, yeah, this is probably parotitis. And we talked about how you would treat that. As a physician, you can prescribe medication to yourself, which of course is not an ideal situation, but desperate times. So we kind of talked about like what the general course of action would maybe be. And just talking to him made me feel a lot more calm. And this, I don't know, it was probably like 7 or 8 p.m. And I felt like, okay, I can like get through this. So I got off the phone with him. I'm like, great, I know exactly what I need to prescribe myself. Was looking online, could not find a 24-hour pharmacy that was open anywhere in my area, like anywhere. And I live in Berkeley, it's a big city. And so I thought, okay, I'll have to wait till the morning to start antibiotics. But come like 10 p.m., it was going downhill fast. I was in excruciating pain. My in-laws live very close to us in Berkeley. And so they actually came over to like check on me. And I think my poor husband at that point was just like, I don't know what to do. Like maybe we just need a second opinion. And they came and distracted me for a little while. And we were watching a little bit of like the last part of the Olympics. And I felt like I was doing okay. And they went home after about an hour. But from like 10 p.m. to 12:30 a.m., the swelling was just rapidly expanding. And then it started to get hot. And then I had a fever of like a little bit over 100 degrees. Because I was in so much pain, I decided to go to the emergency room. Usually when you're deciding whether or not to go to the ER, you're basically saying like, I feel bad enough that they might need to admit me to the hospital. And in my heart of hearts, I knew I probably did not need to be admitted to the hospital. Yes, I was running a fever, I had this swelling. And so I felt kind of silly going to the ER, but at the same time, because things were getting so much worse, I felt like I needed some type of like expedited workup done. I was like, I probably need a little bit of blood work to make sure I don't have a systemic infection. I need to maybe have an ultrasound of this area to kind of visualize the tissue and figure out what specifically is causing the swelling. Is it a lymph node? Is it the parotid gland? Is it something else? And so that's really why I decided I needed to go to the ER. Plus I needed pain control. Like everything I was taking over the counter was not cutting it. And I have never in my life been like, I need IV pain medication, but in that moment, I felt truly desperate. So it's 1:30 in the morning on a Wednesday night. I thought, the ER probably won't be too busy, like our local Berkeley ER. We get there, it is a madhouse, and it really brought me back to my intern year when I worked at the Denver County ER. There's a whole cast of characters that come into the ER after midnight, and I was seeing the full spectrum. But I get checked in because of COVID. My husband couldn't come in with me, so I'm in the ER waiting. They put this band on my wrist and they tell me, oh, it's gonna be a couple of hours. And at that point, my heart just sinks because I'm like, I came here because I need like immediate help. And truly, I mean, of all the things that come to the ER, did I need immediate help? No, but I was in a lot of pain. I didn't have a gunshot wound. I wasn't having problems breathing or keeping down fluids or something like that. But I think when you're in pain, you just can't make fully rational decisions and you feel really desperate. So I'm sitting in the ER, waited probably an hour and a half, and they call me back and I'm like, yes, okay, like that is not bad. But they're just calling me back to get labs done. And they're like, oh, it'll be a few hours before we have your lab results, which I know lab results can be expedited. I've worked in many hospitals. So I was like, really? But regardless, I live very close to the hospital. So I told them I was waiting in my car outside, but my husband and I actually just like drove home from like 4 a.m. to like 6 a.m. And because I said, can you call me when the lab results are ready? So we actually came home for a little bit and then they called us back to the hospital when everything was ready. But I mean, if I had to sit in the ER with excruciating pain from 1:30 in the morning to 6 a.m., I don't know. At that point, I actually felt like I couldn't make it. So we get my lab results and it essentially shows that my electrolytes are imbalanced. I had very low potassium and very low sodium, which didn't really make sense. It wasn't like I had been throwing up or having problems, but regardless, they said I needed IV fluids. And then my white blood cell count, which is sort of a loose marker for a systemic infection, was really, really high. And so they hooked me up with IV antibiotics as well to try and quell any infection that might be originating somewhere else in my body and manifesting in my jawline, or more likely, and what ended up happening is there was an infection in my parotid gland. At that point, they also took me back to have ultrasound imaging done of the parotid area and just this jawline to kind of ensure that that really was the issue and there wasn't an abscess or some other type of pathology going on in the area that needed to be addressed in a different way. So for example, if there was an abscess there, it might have needed to be drained. So I feel very happy that that didn't happen, but I just felt so pathetic. I had no energy. I was in so much pain. They're wheeling me on a gurney through the depths of the hospital to go down to the imaging center. So I showed up to the ER at 1:30 in the morning. It's now like 8 a.m. and I finally get all of my imaging. They have my labs. And for the first time, I see a physician at all. No one had examined me at that point. No one had talked to me about my symptoms. So all of the lab ordering, including IV antibiotics and the imaging, had been done without me ever seeing a healthcare professional for a proper evaluation, which I guess is the workflow now in the ER. That blew my mind because that is not how it was when I was an intern. But anyway, I see the doctor. He says he has consulted the ENT, so the ear, nose, and throat surgeon on call, who says he's not going to come in and see me, but I can follow up with him in clinic the following week, and says to put me on antibiotics. So I was put on oral antibiotics, which was Augmentin. So basically, I got my fluids, I got 1 round of IV antibiotics, I got some prescription narcotic pain medication, which I really didn't want to take. I in general don't like taking medication. I mean, I could not control my pain in any other way. And honestly, the medication was not that helpful, but I finally got all of those things aligned. So finally around 10 or 10:30 in the morning, I got discharged from the ER. And my husband came back and picked me up after essentially pulling an all-nighter. And really, once you're diagnosed with parotitis, there's not much to do but wait it out. Wait for the infection to calm down. Wait for the pain to go away. Oftentimes, inflammation of the parotid gland is caused by a salivary gland stone forming and just essentially plugging the salivary duct, and then you get this blockage and this buildup. But they didn't see a stone on imaging, so what they thought might have happened is that my saliva had just somewhat mineralized and turned into sludge. Love that image. And just caused a backup in the salivary system of the parotid gland, which led to an infection. But they don't know why. They were like, maybe you were dehydrated. Okay, but it's fine. It's better now. But it took like 48 hours after starting antibiotics and being on pain medication for things to turn around. And that was the darkest 48 hours. Like after I'd gone to the ER, having the diagnosis, but still being in excruciating pain with no real intervention to do, but just wait until the antibiotics kicked in. That's when I went back on Instagram for just a second to update people. But I mean, I was in so much pain, I couldn't really do anything. But then finally on Saturday, so this all started Tuesday, Saturday, started to feel a little bit better and things started to turn around and I saw the light. It's kind of interesting because while taking the antibiotics for my infection, my rosacea cleared up a lot. So usually we use tetracycline antibiotics, things like doxycycline or minocycline, to help with rosacea. And I was taking Augmentin, which is a penicillin antibiotic, so not the kind we would use for rosacea, but maybe it has some anti-inflammatory properties that were contributing. But regardless, my rosacea was awesome for like 10 days. So that was kind of a fun side effect. But other than that, I felt a lot better after being on the antibiotics. So there is the story on Dr. Ellis's Parotitis. I hope it never happens again. I am going to drink so much water. If I needed any more prompting to not be dehydrated and to drink more in clinic, that was certainly a little kick in the behind. But anyway, thanks for listening. I know this is kind of a departure from our normal skincare and dermatology information, but I kind of like to keep you guys updated on my life too. If you want more of my life updates, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Samantha Ellis. Make sure to like and subscribe. That really helps out the channel. And I'll see you next time for some skincare discussions.